Welcome to the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast from Never Too Late Cafe. I'm your host, Laura Womack. Each week, we sit down for a chat with someone just like you, someone who had an idea, a passion, a dream, or sometimes just a thought, and planted that seed, watched it grow into something they wanted to share with the world. If you have an idea for a topic or someone that would be a guest for the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast, feel free to reach out to us on Facebook, or you can join our Never Too Late Cafe Facebook group. We'd love to hear from you. Today I have a special guest with me, Angie Mcpherson. Hi, Angie.
Hi there. Thanks so much for the invite, Laura.
Well, it's good to have you. So we're just going to dive right in and first tell us where you're currently living and where you're from originally, if it's different.
Yeah. Right now I'm currently living in southern Indiana in a tiny little town called Memphis, Indiana. We're about 15 minutes from Louisville, so we're close to civilization. I actually grew up in Berlin Heights, Ohio, which is about as northern as you can get on Lake Erie, in between Cleveland and Toledo, right in the middle. Our claim to fame is we're pretty close to Cedar Point. So, yeah. So that was the excitement.
Cedar Point in Ohio.
Yes. Yeah. Northern Ohio. We had lots of snow and all that fun snow stuff. And then in the summer, we had lots of Cedar Point traffic to deal with through.
I saw that and I thought Berlin Heights was like a suburb of Berlin.
Yeah, nope.
Amish.
Yeah.
I bet everybody thinks that. I'm thinking, You're Amish. I love going to the Amish area here.
Yeah. Well, we would drive past them Amish, going to like Mansfield, Ohio, and towards Columbus, because I do a lot of horse shows in Columbus and stuff. But yeah, we actually didn't really have any Amish, but Berlin Heights is so small. It's not really even on hardly any maps. There's nothing. Like, we had one stoplight, a tiny grocery store called the Sparkle Market. So we had no McDonald's. Like, you had to drive places to get anywhere. So it was a little farm town, but we were, like I said, 5 minutes away was Lake Erie and the beaches, and Cedar Point was 15 minutes away. So it was a great town to grow up in, I think. But not much opportunity if you wanted to do something more outside of that kind of stuff. I ended up, I knew I was not going to stay in Berlin Heights my whole life, on that end of stuff. So, and I went to college at the University of Findlay, which is in Findlay, Ohio, for training horses. So I was an equestrian studies major with a Western emphasis. So basically fancy for saying training Western horses.
That intrigues me. I was a horse person for many years. As a kid, I dreamed horses, thought horses, even before I had a horse.
Yeah. Well, I got my first horse when I was 6, my mom and dad, and my mom loved horses too. So she got it. And then it became evident that I was the horse person in the family. So I pretty much took her over. And then I started 4-H when I was 8 years old, and I did 4-H for 10 years. So I was a senior in high school, was my last year. But I have been horse crazy forever. So it was just something I knew when I was 14 years old. I knew what college I was going to, what I was going to be doing. And, there was no talking me out of the horse path. So it's kind of where I ended up. And then, after college, just took some training jobs across Pennsylvania. I ended up in Columbus, Ohio, also ended up in, and then just health reasons basically forced me out of the actual training part of things. So then I just had to figure out my entire life was geared towards training horses, and what was I going to do now that I couldn't do it full time anymore. So
do you still show?
I do not. I have 2 horses. And they are I like to call them my pasture ornaments, but they're senior horses. So our one mare, she's 29 years old this year, and I have her son with us, and he is 25. So they're
Oh
up
my
there in age.
word.
Yeah, but I tell you what, she is like a spring chicken. She runs in the barn kicking and bucking, and so she doesn't know she's very old for a horse.
What's a
So
number? Age is just a number.
exactly, yeah. So she's feeling good. So, but so my dad actually got transferred. He worked at Ford his whole life, and so he got transferred to Louisville, Kentucky, and I came to visit my parents one time, and I'd been to Lexington to the horse park when I was younger, but I'd
Hmm.
never really been to Louisville. And I fell in love with everything. And it was so just so many horses here that, I was like, I'm meant to be here. And so I pretty much instantly moved here, and just, haven't really left the area. I kind of traveled around, and so where I'm at now in Memphis is because I have 10 acres, and, so I have room now for my horses. So, and we've been here for about 15 years, I think, in our place right now. So, you know, it's we're finally happy and lots of land.
Well, I want to ask, you went to another school and you studied, how did it come about? Conflict management. How did
Oh
that come
yeah.
about?
So I actually was hired. So after I found out I really couldn't ride, or do too much, it was just too much, that I realized I had to join the working world. So I did a lot of retail my whole life, but then at the time, throughout all the moving around, got tired of retail. I got hired at Sullivan University, and so I was a manager of the admissions staff, and I decided to go back to school. And so the conflict management really helped me as the management part of side of things on how to deal with conflict. Because as a manager, um, there's a lot of conflict for all sorts of reasons. And then that really did help me in my personal life and how to deal with, like, how do I talk with my husband, and how do we, and I can't say I'm perfect because I still do the wrong things, but at least I can recognize now it was probably the wrong reaction I had. So I think that really helped out a lot. Like I said, so my master's in conflict management really has helped, deal with everyday things, I think.
That is really interesting. So you are an artist, and when did you learn that you liked getting in? I know that you do horses. Do you do other things?
Not really. So because I'm so horse crazy, I just started drawing horses forever, So I just, and that's always kind of something I've always been interested in art, and so I've worked with the different mediums between pencil and oils. And so I've taken oil painting lessons and, on that aspect of stuff. But for the most, my heart is with the horses. And, so throughout the years, I really never thought, like I said, my entire young adult life was I was going to be a professional horse trainer, and this was it. Even in college, I kind of refused to get a minor because I didn't want to acknowledge I wasn't going to be a horse trainer. So, so it was just something that I never really thought, oh, I could make money doing something else, that might even be horse related. It just, in my head, it was always going to be a trainer. And then life dealt some weird cards. And so I was able to look back and go, I've still been drawing horses. I'm doing these things. Maybe I can still be involved in the horse field, somehow, but my own way now. So that's kind of how, I do some drawings for my books that I write, and I do a coloring book line. So I do all my drawings for my coloring book lines, but then there are some subject material that maybe I want to write about, but I know I can't draw. So sometimes I have to look out for outside help for those things.
So let's jump into the other. So you have a children's book line that's horses and some of those adventures and things. And then you have another genre, and that's under a different name.
Yes. Yeah. So I had decided a few years ago to get a pen name for my adult supernatural line, because, well, so I had a child, she's 11 now. So when she was old enough to kind of go with me to some book shows and stuff, she was looking at my covers, and one of my covers it was kind of bloody. And she looked at it and she was like, I don't like that cover. It's scary. So that kind of, when I did branch out then to start doing children's books, that got me thinking, you know what? If my little 5-year-old scared of this cover, maybe I don't need to have that introduced, in their internet searches if their parents are looking for things. So I decided I needed a pen name. So we, with the help of my husband, because he's always so, I don't know how he comes with these silly, great ideas, but I was like, I need a pen name. And he was just like, why not Penny? So I was like, oh, that is wonderfully great. And then the Pearson line is really just a different way of spelling our last name, Mcpherson. So it came up with Penny Pearson. And so then that way it can just sink into all those adult materials, like I said, I write about supernatural things. So sometimes my girls are going to die, and they will come back to life, but they're not going to be the same as they were. I've got some bloody scenes. And so some of the subject material is just a little too adulty for the young kids. So that's kind of why I decided to just kind of make it. I've got Penny Pearson for my adult line, and then Angie Mcpherson for, the kids. And then, and it can even go up to somewhat to young adult, but I feel like now the market has changed so much for young adult that they might as well not even be marketed as young adult. And it's just now general fiction, just because they're reading so advanced, and what they're reading, that subject matter is pretty much what I'm writing in my adult line. So on that aspect of things, that's kind of rides the line on which side is going to get what title and stuff like that.
Yeah, you're so right about the way that kids are reading things that we probably didn't when we were younger.
Yeah.
And the sci-fi, the science, well, I'd say zombie thing, and all those sort of things are so big now. So, how many books have you written? I was trying to do I know you have a collection.
Yeah. I think all in all, it's like 37, or I mean, it's like, but some of them it's the same story, but I've got different ways of delivering it. So it might be for my picture book for my children's line. Say I have, for example, I've got one called Misty's Wish. It's about a barn cat that doesn't want to be a barn cat. She's got to figure out a way to tell her owner she wants to live in the house. So I had gotten illustrations, because after trying to draw cats, I realized I'm not good at drawing cats. So I kind of knew I needed some help with that. So I got line drawings and color illustrations from a gentleman. And then I started thinking, I've got a picture book, which is the color illustrations. I have the line drawings, which would make an excellent coloring book. And then about a year later, I was sitting on these line drawings, and I realized some of the kids are growing up older and they're not going to want picture books. And so I then can make a bigger story as like chapter book length, and I could utilize those line drawings on that aspect. So then I've got very similar to the Scholastic books that are, the bigger fonts, and chapter books for those readers that are maybe 8 to 12 years old. So it's, just a little more, it's more challenging for them, but it's still the same fun story. It's just now more embellished, and you can see more things, and, on that aspect. So a lot of them, even though it looks like, oh, wow, 37 books is a lot, some of them are 3 different versions of the same story, just delivered different ways. So,
well, you've put so much thought into the age group and the different ways to, like you say, deliver it. I wouldn't have thought of that. And that's a great idea, because, well, even in different age groups, there's different levels of readers and interest, as an adult, I still love animation. So
and that's on that aspect. And the same thing with, and the kids develop at a different age. And I have some that, that maybe they have a disability. And so, based on that, sometimes my picture books are perfect for even almost a young adult, but based on what's going on with their lives and things like that, that book is perfect for them. So, on that aspect. And then honestly, I never thought I'd have a children's book line ever. I started 20 some years ago writing vampire fiction. And never thought, and it wasn't until I had my daughter and we were reading her books, because we started pretty much before she even understood what we were saying to her. We would always read to her. And then I just thought, I can do this. So I kind of branched out and just, through trial and error, just kind of found, and then it just, as she got older, and then as we were reading older books, I thought, oh, I can do this now, and so it just, if I kind of found it by accident, because I never, if you would have asked me 20 years ago, do you think you're going to have children's books? I'd be like, no, why would I? So, sometimes life is just a little different than expected. So.
Well, it led you down a path it's very interesting. And you do craft fairs. So is it your books on display or some things that you developed because of that? Or
yeah, I when I do the craft fairs, I bring my books. I have a cool tent and all the tables and so the setup and stuff. I really find, yes, I'm an author and I can do book fairs and stuff, but I find I am in my best element when it's almost like the element of surprise. People are walking by and they're looking at all these different booths and there are hardly any books. And suddenly here's me, and they're very excited to hear that even though it looks like there's a lot of books here, I am the author. So I kind of get their attention, their undivided attention versus, not to say at a book fair, book show, I'm surrounded by people that have books and they're all awesome and they're all in their great mind. And so it's harder for me to sell and have a good time because not everybody, everybody's there for a book, but there are certain genres. So I really find I really like the craft fairs. And then I've kind of found also through the years is, with my kids' books, I can maybe make a necklace where if they buy a certain number of books, then they can get a discount on this little necklace that has this cute little horse on it or this cute little kitten on it. And so then they're like, I'm going to buy a kitten book and I'm going to get a kitten necklace that this woman made. And so, for me, it was just kind of exciting to kind of then I could create a gift line for, so if parents want to buy birthday presents, then they can have more than just one book. They can have a book and a matching necklace or things like that. So, my heart is, I really enjoy selling at the craft festivals and just meeting all the people.
I think that's a great idea. I've never even thought about that. And, but I do know our local library had done something similar. If you read so many books, you could get a bracelet and different charms for it. And I thought, wow, I haven't seen those since for many years. And yet, but that's a really bracelets. That's a great idea because kids do like that.
Yeah. And, and so, they're normally $5. And so, as of now, they're like, if you buy a book, you can get them for $3. So it's not because, being a parent, I know kids are expensive and there's a lot of stuff out there. And I might be jumping the shark on this, but one of the reasons, so I am a hybrid author, which means I have a publisher, but I also self-publish. So that's kind of what that hybrid. So, and I found early on, I entered a contest for, to get a free book, or not really a free book, to win a publishing contract. And so I submitted my story and I ended up getting a publishing contract because I won it. It got illustrations and I was so excited. And this was just a couple of years ago, and got the book and then found out how much I would have to charge parents in order to make any sort of little bit of money on this book, that I was like, I don't want to charge somebody, say, $14 for a book. And so that's kind of where I put where I thought I'm going to work really hard to make books that look just as good as the books out there by publishing companies, but then I can offer it to parents and grandparents and even the kids themselves, cheaper. So that $14 book, I found if I did it myself, all of it other than like some of the illustrations, I can offer for $10. And people have $10 in their pocket more than they have 14 or things like that. So I just, I found for the parent line and the kids books, I try to make them as inexpensive as I can, because I mean, how many books do kids have? A whole bunch. So, so I try to think of it that way, as, what's the cheapest I can make a little bit of money on it, but then also feel good that, okay, I didn't break the bank, by having to charge so much money. So on that aspect, I've kind of found that out in the, world of writing. Publishers are awesome and they're great, and you don't have to do a lot of that. You don't have to do any of that formatting, and the editing most of the time is covered, and they get you a cover page, and they get you that front cover, but it also comes at a price. So yeah.
Well, I hadn't heard the term hybrid, but now it makes perfect sense. And so you have a book that's coming out soon?
Yeah, I've got a couple. So I have
a couple.
I am always working on multiple things, and some of them. So I have been signed for a 3-book series with Seventh Star Press for my Wizards of the Vatican. And so it was a story that's just kind of always been in my head. So book 1's been released. It actually came out the same week. I think it was in 2020 that we all shut down for COVID. And so it really got a very unimpressive start in its world, because I really couldn't get out and, kind of do any promotions on it. So then book 2 came out in November. And then they have book 3. They have it, it's written, it'll just wait and it'll get released. So I'm very excited about book 2 for that, called Bequest of Blood is the name of that series. And then I just am releasing self-published. I have a girl's guide series in my Penny Pearson line, that a new one that is getting released, called The Girl's Guide to the Bermuda Triangle. So it's kind of a fantasy adventure, I guess is what we can call it. And then in my children's line, I'm working on a brand new series because I've run out of barn animals to write about. So I'm now doing a magical series, about some kids in the world of where there's a little bit of magic. So that's going to be chapter book. Book 1 is 2. I just got the illustrations back, and I'm trying to format the story and get it ready to be released. So I'm hoping by March it should be ready to go.
So your thing is you do a lot of series. So you have an idea and you just do a book and then you expound on it. And so that's how you get a whole series.
Yeah, sometime now. And, there are some series that it follows the same people, and it just, they go to adventure to adventure. I have a hard time. So a lot of times I'll create a world, but my main characters are different. So I have a series of, say, 4 books or 3 books. Each book is going to be a different set of main characters, but it's going to be set in the world that, like my Wizards of the Vatican, there's a secret department in the Vatican that the wizards, are involved in. To basically, they're like the police force that make sure, the world is safe against demons and zombies and vampires and, all that stuff. So, but each story is a story about a different wizard, going that way. And my girls' guides, it's basically each series is a different story about women in very strange places, basically getting in trouble, and falling in love. So, but it's
all, you've got it all covered.
So exactly. So yeah, it's, so for me, it is very hard, I find, to write so involved, where I read series, but if it's got 8 books and you're following the same people, I tend to forget what happened in book 1. So that I have to go back and read book 1 to figure out what's happening in book 8. But then by that time I've forgotten and I have to read all of them. So it's just really hard for me sometimes to keep track of the series that just are so big and so involved that evolve that one person. So I found it is amazing that other authors can do that, but I realize I don't have that ability. So I just need to create a world that's, going to be the same. I take really good notes. I do Excel spreadsheets, and I do this program called My Mind that you have to organize your thoughts. And I just try to keep track of things that way. And so, yeah.
So how do you come up with you have a process that you go through to come up with your topics? And I mean, you're very broad, you're diverse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Better word.
So, yeah, sometimes for my kids' books, honestly, if you look at my kids' books, all of them, other than like my coloring book line, zoo animals and things like that. Yeah. But my other lines, they're all my barn animals or things that have happened to me. So like the Emma and the yellow mare, if you look at, there's a horse on front. She's actually my mare that I'm looking at right now in the pasture. So she's the cover model. And, the story is set on basically things that happened to me when I was younger in 4-H, the things I got in trouble for, stuff like that, things we kind of lived through, and I was able to tweak it and make it more kids-like, or sometimes a little more exciting. But it's kind of like true events. And then the same thing with my barn cat rescues. Those are my rescue barn cat kittens that we adopted. And then, what they went through. Yes, she got sprayed by a skunk right away. And, so it's almost like real life is stranger than fiction, so, but then I realized I, ran out of that. But so for my kids line, it's really, me. Like I have a book called Mama's Sick and It's Okay. And it's based on me, and handling my multiple sclerosis throughout the years. And my daughter had asked me one day, am I going to die from this disease? And, so I was trying to think of a way to like, how can I help her or maybe other kids that if they're scared of, about when their parent gets sick or something like that, that they can maybe have a book that they can, open up at night and look at or read with the parents to kind of help them. So I try to do things that, that are, every day. So my kids' lines for the most part are very grounded until my newest series, being about magic is not. But before that, it was all just, animals doing animal things. So now my Penny Pearson line, sometimes that way, my very first, I have a vampire series that started when I was in college, and I took a creative writing course, and they had me start, one of the assignments was doing a reading or write a story. And the instructor commented about how unique it was, just like my first chapter. And that really kind of got me like, someone else likes this. And so that's kind of how that went on. And so for my newest release, The Bequest of Blood, from the Wizards of the Vatican, that story actually came about because at the time I was getting ice pick headaches. And which I don't know if anybody knows, but they're like, imagine an ice pick getting slammed into your head, and it comes on without warning and it goes away. And there's nothing, like now I figured out there's nothing wrong. Like I don't have a brain tumor, but at the time I thought, oh my God, I'm dying from a brain tumor or something's going on. And there was a song I was also at that same time kind of hearing about this, basically this insidious force that just resides inside your body. And so I thought, oh my gosh, what if this is like a spirit trying to get out? And so from that, between the ice pick headache and that one song I had heard, kind of spawns Bequest of Blood, which is basically the spirit of a serial killer is residing in this woman's body. And so a wizard from the Vatican basically comes to find her. And, and you're not sure, is he there to basically imprison her or try to kill her to control the spirit, or is there, something else they can do? So sometimes the process, sometimes it comes not exactly forced, but there's thinking behind it. And then sometimes it's just, oh, wow, what my head is killing me. This must be something that's invading my body. So
write a book about it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's, and sometimes like everyone always asks, why do I write about supernatural things. And why do I write about vampires? And it's, it honestly stems between when I was little, there was a movie called Nightbreed by Clive Barker, and it was like in the 1990s. And that was my first to kind of open my eye of there are monsters out there, but they can also fall in love. So if you take this horror movie that's like, gruesome and, there's a lot of twists and plots, but I pulled out where, wow, you can have this monster and they can fall in love. So that's kind of what stuck with me throughout all the years. And so all of my things are, they're monsters, but they deserve love too. So that's what brought that about.
It's an interesting twist. So, and so your website is Paranormally Weird. Is
Yeah.
that for to display your books and such?
Yeah. Yeah, that one's my Penny Pearson line. So the paranormallyweird.com is just my Penny Pearson books. And then for my kids' books and the coloring book line, it's Angie mcp.com, and that will pull all of my kids. And so I have blogs for each one, has kind of a blog, and it kind of gears towards either kids things or more adult supernaturally kind of stuff. So
very interesting. So I know that one of the things I'd found was when we were talking about the Seventh Star Press, they must have blogs where they share some author information or something. Yeah. So, well, I should have said sooner that we met at an Imaginarium.
Yes. Yep.
And I don't know if you remember, you see lots of people. And I see, and that is a convention of all sorts of creativity. And it's hosted every year in Louisville, Kentucky. And this year's the 10th anniversary of it.
Yes. Yeah.
And I see you're going to be a speaker.
Yes. Yeah. I'll be one of the podcast or one of the panel. And so I sit on, and they're really great. And they have so many different panels that they can do. So I'm not sure which ones I'm going to be sitting in this year, but last year it was writing children's books. Another one was the supernatural element. And then basically writing while you're, how do you handle a disability or depression or anything like that? Like, how do you still write through that, or how does that help you? So, so we'll see this year which ones that I will be involved in. But yeah, it is such a great event, and there's so many talented people, and it's not just authors. They have big gamers and stuff. But yeah, it's always a highlight of my year.
It is very diverse. I mean, I can say that, So how do you come up with ideas for your book covers? Is it just, you sort of sketch it out and have someone else do it? Or so, because the book cover is what really appeals to people to draw them if they're not familiar with you or your genre.
Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah. And that whole adage of, don't judge a book by its cover. But honestly, in this day, I mean, for authors, it kind of is. And yes, we've had some books, and I've always been toying with the idea of, sometimes I love those books that's like, you just have a very unique necklace on the front, or, that one object. And then I love other ones where, this whole big scene that's there. So, a lot of them, my kids' lines, it's pretty easy because my subject material, it's a horse or it's a cat, or on that aspect. So, for my horse line, the Emma series, that's just taking 1 million pictures of my horses and trying to find one good one where her ears are up and she's looking in the right way and she doesn't look like a dork when she's walking, that kind of thing. But like, for instance, my Wizards line through Penny Pearson and Seventh Star, Holly and Stephen, they designed the book cover for me, and it is phenomenal. But they kind of always ask me, what am I looking for? So like this second book, I said, I would like a female on the cover, but then also a necklace is a big part of the story. And so, so I wanted to have something where it's going to be reflected that, so they got a picture and they've got a girl wearing a choker necklace. So it's going to tie in as you're reading. And then you've got the Vatican, in the backgrounds. So it's, so on that aspect, I think it really lends to, you got to kind of know what your genre is on, on that aspect. And, my newest cover, that with the help of my husband, really helps me design my own covers because he's a big computer guy and I'm not very techie. And so he kind of helps with the formatting programs and stuff on how to make it where my Girl's Guide to the Bermuda Triangle is basically all these different pictures that are stacked on top of each other with a cruise ship at night. And then we found a picture of like the Aurora Borealis, so we just have to layer and layer. So sometimes it takes a lot of time, and a lot of work. But so, and then yes, other ways you can, have somebody make your cover for you and on that aspect. But because I wanted not charge a whole bunch of money for my books, that I try to keep things in-house as much as I can, on that aspect. So, yeah.
And when you mention Holly and Steve, that they're the owners of the Seventh
Star
Press. Yes. Okay. Yeah. They're also the founders of the Imaginarium.
Yes. Yeah. So really they're, as you can imagine, very busy. So, they are, I don't know how they do it. So they're always in their work, and they work with the select few authors. In fact, when I met them, I was doing an author appearance at an AARP event, and Stephen was also talking at the same event. So we were on the same panel. So then talking after that, and I kind of knew about their imprint and their line anyways. And so I just kind of mentioned like, hey, I've got this book and I've got a series, maybe would you be interested in? At the time he was just like, we don't do too many, we don't have a lot of room for extra authors. He's like, but send it my way. And he's like, we're very selective, but we'll see. And so, much to my surprise, they were like, hey, we like it and we want to publish you. So, but I don't know how they manage, and Stephen also writes his own books as well. He's got very big line of fantasy books. So between him being an author, him being the publishers, they're doing, and he does the editing, and they, so they are a well-oiled machine, I feel like.
Oh my goodness. And I saw one of it might be your latest or upcoming, where it has a cover model debut. So is that a person that kind of works with them, and I've never heard that term before, cover model for a book cover. So
yeah,
is that a thing?
Yeah. So, sometimes it is like there was, it's almost like you harken back to days with cover models and stuff. Like everybody remembers the romance with Fabio and all that. So it's
yeah. Mm-hmm.
You start recognizing, and there was another author, and he's at Imaginarium. There was an author, and he had a woman, and she was the cover model for the fantasy book he had. And it got so big that she would come with him to book events and be there. So when people bought a book, they can get it signed. You get a picture taken with the author and the cover model. So, that's pretty awesome. I can't bring my horse to shows, but, and then I do have one book cover that it's my Girl's Guide to Time Travel. And if you have a chance to look at it, there is a very nice man on there. So it's like, okay, I would love to, to have him come with me to book shows.
Yes, I've seen the cover.
Yeah.
You notice I can remember it.
Yeah. So, but it's that same thing where if you get somebody and, you can be like, hey, I knew this. Or there was another lady that her son was the cover of all her series of things, because he was it's like, okay, she's the mom, but he was pretty nice looking. So you just try to think of like just on that aspects. But yeah, there can be cover models that are you recognize them, or you keep them in your series, and that same thing where then it also helps you sometimes picture what they look like. So if you're looking already at a model, or what the cover looks like, and you have the people there, then it almost helps you, put them in the story in your head, where then it's like a movie and you can see them walking around and you can picture what color hair, or, what, anything like that.
So what words of wisdom would you offer anyone that, you've done so many things between artwork and different genres of books, and you even started, bracelets with your kids' books.
Yeah.
What advice would you offer someone that wants to do what you are doing?
Yeah, and not to sound cliche-ish, but it's that kind of like never give up. But you kind of in the world of authors and publishing, it is a brutal world. And even though even me, I compare, and every day I think quietly to myself and never out loud, except for right now, that gee, I wish this would be a movie. Like I wish somebody would see my story, but it's that no, it's not going to be found for the most part. You just have to you have to put the legwork in, and you're going to get your kicks. And it's common, a slush pile. When you go out there and you're researching what agent you're going to send your book to, or what publisher you're going to send things to, you gotta know they're going to say no. Lots of people, and they might keep saying no, and then they might be like, hey, this is almost there. And so you just got to keep plugging away at it's going to be a lot of rejection letters. I had a folder, and once upon a time I used to print them out when I got them in email as rejections. I'd print them out, and like it was some sort of I commiserate with my giant file of denials and things. But that's the only way. It's almost treating it like a job interview. And you've got your resume, and how well does your resume work? And depending on how it looks or how it doesn't look and what's in there, you're going to get judged by those things, fair or not fair. And then also truly researching what the world's looking for. Now, for me, everyone, they ask, oh, do I write for other people? No, it's just me, which is, why it's hard sometimes for me to find out what genre am I really, because sometimes I write such weird, but it's just what's in my head. But a lot of times, what authors or what agents or publishers are looking for now might be, they need stories of diversity, or they want more, kitten stories, or so there's always agents for what they're looking for. And then just finding out like, hey, I have something that they might like. And so just kind of following that path there between research and just getting kind of a thick skin, because you're going to get turned down a lot. Not everyone's going to have a bestseller like 50 Shades of Grey or Twilight, things like that. It's, when I publish a book and I put it out in the world, and you look at where it's at in the list of things, and it goes out and of like 4 million books out there. It's ranked. So there are a lot of books out there in the world. So not everyone's going to get famous. Yeah. And so it's just, you have to know and acknowledge just like what you want to do, and just don't get discouraged. I think that's my biggest thing. Just hang in there. Don't get discouraged. And then just a lot of research for what they're looking for.
Those are good words of wisdom, because I never thought about the research part about the market.
Yeah.
So this podcast is called Bloom Where You're Planted. And I always ask people what that means to them, because it is different for everyone. So what does it mean to Angie?
Yeah. I feel like it's that harkens to life's going to possibly throw wrenches in your plans and where you thought you were going. And so you thought you're going to be in this nice fertile soil of, the world of, warm, happy things. And then sometimes you get ripped up and your roots get torn and beat. And then, you get put somewhere else in the world. And then you just try to figure out, can I survive here? How can I survive? And then you just find ways slowly to, kind of bring sunshine in and find that water and that rain. And, and then I think then you grow stronger, and you might look, terribly different than where you started out at. But I feel like, it makes you stronger, and it might even show you things, the side of you that you never thought, just because those trials that you had early on that, totally, you just didn't think you could, that sometimes that I thought I couldn't get past, that it was so horrible. But, with some time and care, you'll get there. So I think for me, that's kind of what that means is, it might change, but it's okay. And you just have to kind of work at it.
Great words again. Well, Angie, it's been great having you as a guest. I knew from the time I met you, I wanted to learn more about your writing, and I really didn't know at the time you had multiple genres. But I'm glad we met, and I look forward to seeing you again and talking to you later, sometime with I just feel like you're just beginning. You've got so much that you're doing and so many ideas. And so I do thank you for being a guest.
Yes, thank you
And
so much.
I do want to mention we are in 2023. And so with your book just coming out, it's January of 2023. And when is your release date?
Let's see. So for The Wizards, it is already out. February 10th is my release date for my Bermuda Triangle, Girls Guide to the Bermuda Triangle. And then a March date is set for my newest children's book. It's a chapter book, and it's going to be a Magic Today School Days series. So yeah, so it's kind of lined up month after month.
Wow. So again, thank you, Angie, for being a guest. And this is the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast, sponsored by Never Too Late Cafe. I'm Laura Womack, your host, and I'm saying bye, Angie. Bye for now.
All right. Thank you so much for this opportunity.